Hi, my name's Bill Higginson. I've been an artist since I was pretty much a baby. The road I took was techniques. I decided I wanted to learn everything before I knew anything. Today I'm going to be doing a mountain landscape for you. I'm going to be using 3 different mediums: graphite pencil, color pencil and pastels, to show you how the mediums are different from each other, but also how they relate back into each other. So when I do a mountain landscape, I like to start with the sky. The type of pencils I'm going to be using is Derwent graphite pencils. I'll also be using the Staedtler eraser and some sandpaper. What I'm doing here is I'm shaving the graphite off onto the sandpaper so I can use a tissue to smoothly spread it onto the sky. I'm pressing pretty hard on this to really force the graphite into the tooth of the page. And then as I come down, I slowly lift the weight so I can create a better blend as it comes down to the lower section of the sky. The paper I'm using is Strathmore Bristol Smooth, and the reason I like to use this one is because there's little to no texture in the page. There is some, and it does come in handy, but for things like what I'm doing right now, it makes it a lot smoother to get a much cleaner blend. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with my kneadable eraser and I'm going to start creating the clouds. By just using small circles and maybe going over some of the rougher areas of the blend, I can hide them. As I do this, the graphite's just coming out of the page, leaving a nice white cloud there for me. This eraser is nice and soft, so I can get some really nice fluffy edges on the cloud. So now I'm going to start with my mountains, and to do that I'm going to use a 2B pencil. I'm going to start putting the darks of the mountain in, and by darks I mean the rock that you can see in the rock face. In holding a pencil, the angle that you hold it on, you can access different points and surfaces of that pencil. So if you have a bigger area, use the flat of the pencil. If you have a smaller area, use the tip of the pencil. So now I'm going to use a stump to soften the rocks I just put into the mountain, and also put the shadowed snow into this side of it. Pressing pretty hard with it to get this darker side in. As I come to the front here where there is a bit more detail, I can roll up to the tip and just get some softer ripples of snow in the face of the mountain. So now I'm going to use the Staedtler eraser, and I can get really sharp highlights in this snowy mountain. If I erase something I don't want to erase, it is easy enough to put it back in. I can pull my stump back out and just soften that off a little bit. Now that I have my mountains roughed in, I want to get started on my trees so I can start to get a good feel where this artwork is going. I'm going to begin with the trees in the distance. I'm not drawing a particular tree, I'm using the grain of the paper. Now although this paper is very smooth, it still has a grain. So by rubbing over this, little speckles of white are left there as the pencil moves over the tooth that is here. So now I'm going to grab a darker pencil, which is my 4B. I'm going to start popping in these happy little trees in the foreground, which are darker, which will separate from the background by using this darker tone. The thing about using graphite is it is nice and clean, and not only that, is it's really easy to pull out. So you can have a small tin of pencils and an eraser, and you can create art anywhere. Now what I want to do is I want to get my 8B, and just at the base of these trees, I want to create a darker tone, just to add the shadows in there. I was using a 4B, and the reason being it is a mid-tone. Now I pull out this darker tone, and I can really force the depth into these trees. In drawing, I like to use the analogy of a golfer. The golfer has a full set of clubs, but technically he can get around the golf course with a 7-iron. It's very much the same as a graphite artist. I have a set of pencils, but I can easily get around the course with one pencil. I just have to change my weight. So in doing this, I can create the darks with my 8B here, but if I was to pick up a different grade of pencil right now, it just makes my job a lot easier. What I'm going to pull out now is my battery powered eraser, and what I'm going to be doing with this is putting the highlights of the snow in the tree. It just takes the work out of it for you. What I want to do now is I'm going to create the whites in the branches of the tree here. I use a thing called the stylus, which you can find in the sculpting section. I want to scar the page with an indent. By doing this, I'm creating the highlight in the tree that will be there once I've finished this section. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to forget about the work I did there, and I'm going to put the tree that is in the background. And see, as I do this, the highlights on this tree are staying there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get into the snow that's lying on the ground. Similar as to how I did the sky, I'm going to get my soft cloth here and I'm just going to cover the ground. It can be a little rougher because we're going to work back into it with the erasers. I am going to change the image I have here and I'm going to put a little creek in here. So before I start on the ground, I just want to softly, with my stump, put in where my creek is going to go so I can work around it. So I got some reference there for the perspective of the river, so I get a nice accuracy about it. Now I just want to start putting the highlights of the snow into the image. Now I have the artwork rolling nicely, I've got the trees marked in, and I have the river marked out. I want to get started on the water. So I have a really neat technique for that. And the first step is to turn the artwork on its side and grab this piece of glass. By looking through this side of the glass, I can see the reflection of it laid out on the paper. I can see every tree, I can see every dot of light, and everything's made out, even the mountain on top. And by using the sharp edge of the eraser here, it has to be clean. I put it on the edge of the water and I drag vertically down. It gives the illusion of reflective water. I'm going to put a lot more work into this, but just for the demonstration's purpose, I'm going to show you how to put ripples into the water now. And by using the clean edge of the eraser here, using a nice horizontal kind of motion, I'm going to erase the ripples into the water. Keep rolling the eraser to have the clean edge. So now that I've shown you the techniques in graphite, I want to show you the differences that you'll encounter with colour pencil. I'm going to be using Prismacolor for the colour drawing. When you look into the clouds, you'll see I've drawn around the whites. The reason being is that colour pencil doesn't erase very well versus the graphite, which does. So that becomes a really important thing, is planning when it comes down to colour pencil. With the colour drawing, I'm using the same paper as the graphite. The one really important thing to me in this drawing is the whites of the page and how they become pretty much my white pencil. I find a white pencil sometimes is good just for taking the edge off a colour. It just brings it together, it gives it a certain milkiness, which is really lovely. In a very similar style to the clouds, the whites of the mountain here, I have to use the paper once again. So what I will be doing is drawing the shadows in next to the light. Whereas in the graphite, I was erasing the light from the page. As I said, the eraser doesn't work so well with colour pencil, so what I've done, I've used that same engraving technique in there to do the snow. Now I'm just going to come through and I'm going to basically colour in the area of the tree. You see the light popping out of there? That's going to be the little bits of snow sitting on the branches of the tree. You can also see the distant trees here in the background. I'm utilising the exact same effect I used in the graphite work. Just by rubbing the colour pencil over the page, the tooth of the paper is leaving me those nice little white speckles again. I love the similarities that the colour pencils have to graphite. I can carry the detail that I normally get in it. And for those people out there who aren't fans of black and white, they get to experience the same similar techniques that you do in graphite in the colour pencil range. So now I want to show you pastel, which is a much looser approach. For the pastels, I'm going to be using the Mund soft pastels, and the pencils I'll be using are the Giocondas. To a similar way we did the other two pieces, is I would have started with the sky here, which I'll continue on with here. I'm using a nice large area of the pastel because I can. I'm not restricted to a pointy pencil anymore. So right then, that dark blue I put down with this lighter blue over the top, it pretty much becomes like mixing paint in a palette. I'm a bit of a finger blender, so I'm just going to start blending these colours in with my hands. Fill it into the tooth of the page. The difference now between the clouds in graphite and colour pencil is in the pastels I start working into the blues I have in the sky. Because the tooth of the pastel paper is starting to fill up with these pastels, is that it comes to a point where sometimes the paper doesn't want to take the pastel on. So there is a technique that can fix that. It's the workable fixative. So if I squirt this onto the area now, give it a second to dry, it's going to give me a new surface to work on where the white pastel will be separately on top of the blue pastels. Now I've had some fun in the clouds here, I want to go back into these mountains and show you how I got the results I did. And it goes right into the usage of cool and warm tones. So as you see, I have finished this area to some degree, but I want to take it back to where I began with it. So I got out this yellowish ochreish pastel and I put the warmer colours through this area. And I go over those warm tones. So those warm tones and mix nicely in with the white pastel. I get my cool blue and I put it on the back side of the mountain here. And I knock the tone back. So the nice cool blue is showing through into the cold side of the mountain. Then put that blue in there, put the white over it, and it gives you those nice cool shadowed parts of the snowy mountain. So I'm going to grab a dark pastel now, and I'm going to go walk about into the base of these trees down here. Just going to fill the area. I can even pull down onto the side of the pastel and get some good coverage. You kind of want to lift and start using these corners to get a nice thin straight line coming up to the top of these trees. Now I've put my base in with that darker pastel, I'm going to pick up my black Gioconda pastel pencil. I can just start playing with a little bit of detail in these trees. If you spend a lot of time in graphite, and colour pencils, you find some really nice detail, and it is difficult to find the same kind of detail with a pastel. So that's where these pencils come into play. Now I'm going to scoot ahead. I want to get to the point where you can see how to put the fallen snow on the edge of the tree. You just grab your white pastel on one of the nice sharp corners of it. Just pop it in. Come back in with the pencil. Work it up a bit. Just play. Now we're back to the water in this pastel piece. So what I'm going to do is just lightly mark out where I want my little river flowing through the foreground here. I want to get in to where the river is and add the colours I see above it here into the water. With this piece I've changed the positioning of the river. There's not much detail I want to carry into the reflection, so I'm not going to use the mirror for this time round. Okay, as I say, I'll do a lot more work on this, but before I do, I want to show you what I will be doing to get the final result. Basically now I have these colours in the water here. I'll just get my finger like this, and just drag my image downwards to get these nice vertical reflective lines in the water. You can see how my art is technique driven. These are my techniques, this is my opinion, I love what I do, and I hope it helps you in what you want to do. My name is Bill Higginson with Opus Art Supplies. Thanks for watching.